Making art isn't easy for me. Whenever I create, I put standards that go far beyond what my hands can grasp. And I know it's not healthy to be constantly comparing oneself to the masters, especially while being at the very start of the journey. But it's so hard to ignore being surrounded by thousands of master painters and illustrators online, as if drowned in a sea of endless beautiful art. I always question myself if it's even worth trying to create. At times, I feel that everything has already been created, that there might be no space for another artist, especially one as mediocre as me. But at the end of the day, I still try. I try to do the best that I can, because what else would I do? In a way, creating art is one of the hardest things I do in my life. There always seems to be an invisible force that wants to stop me from creating. Honestly, whenever I need to do something important, that force is there. A massive wall that towers over me. There are times where I can climb it, and there are times where the wall seems to spread way beyond the limits my eyes can reach, seeming impossible to overcome. Then suddenly, night falls, my time drained, lost to the void instead of being used towards the things that I love. It's painful that time can never be recuperated, that time is finite. On the other hand, isn't it tempting to crawl back into bed and be enveloped by your cozy blankets, then to get up to paint? Why bother? Maybe like most times, the painting will go wrong. You'll make something awful that everyone will hate, especially you. For me, these thoughts appear more as a lingering anxiety than actual coherent sentences. Like the fight or flight response you get as you linger towards the edge of a cliff. You might fall. So, to feel safe, you avoid even hiking up the summit. I try to avoid being like this, but I swear to God that my brain has a mind of its own. Personally, I need to be absolutely certain that everything will go well before starting something. So I endlessly prepare and plan. Art, on the other hand, is unpredictable. I could prepare and plan to make a painting for days, and the result could be terrible. Or I could half-ass a painting, and it can be the best thing that I've ever made. That's why making art terrifies me. I'm not able to predict if it'll go well or not. Then I end up just not trying. Let's take a little sidestep so I can tell you how I learned how to paint. So, as a kid, I quickly learned that I did not want to become an accountant or anything that has to do with math. I kind of hated math as a kid. I wanted to be an artist. Even though honestly, I might have not have known what being an artist actually meant. But let's be honest, not even today I know what being an artist actually means. I'm just someone who likes to paint. Anyway, when I finally entered uni to study art, I knew nothing about painting. I only drew. Concepts like color, value, composition, well, I shoved them all aside to conform myself with my doodles in my sketchbook. It's not that I didn't want to learn how to paint, I did. But in my head, I had this grand plan. First, I'm gonna only concentrate on drawing, and then when I'm finally a master, I'll learn how to paint. But that would take me at least 100,000 years. I'm sure I knew in the back of my head that this plan didn't make sense at all. But, of course, I was happy to train my drawing every day, not knowing that I was actually hiding from my paints and brushes. Luckily, my mom finally convinced me that I should take painting classes. And I did, and now I paint, because my teacher forced me to. So what did I learn with that? Well, that there's no correct time to start something. I was wasting my life just waiting until I was a master at drawing. I just needed to start, to just dive in. And in my case, I needed someone to push me towards that. Someone to force a paintbrush in my hand and do a painting. And of course, I'll be forever grateful for that. So yeah, I learned my lesson, and today I'm quite the same. Okay, I might be a bit better, I'm more aware of it, but it's still difficult for me to start a painting, especially something that's really hard like a larger illustration. I get scared to start because I think that I'm not ready, that I need to do more studies instead of just letting my creativity flow out and create something that I would love. My brain wants to go slow and steady, to go step by step, to frantically grip where I feel safe, even though I know I need to let go and just dive in. I've been like this ever since, especially when I learned about the fundamentals of art as a teen. My sketchbooks that were filled with anime characters and funny doodles slowly shifted into pages with only anatomy studies. I became obsessed with training. The days where I drew what I liked were just a distant memory. I only drew to improve because anything else was a waste of time in my eyes. And then, of course, I eventually forgot why I drew in the first place. Where did that fun go? The moment I learned that there was a way to improve my art, I stopped feeling worthy of doodling because I wasn't good yet. I wish I learned long ago that we make art not only to make something masterful, but simply because we want to. Let me tell you another anecdote. Recently, I was able to rekindle that fearless energy I once had as a child. A few weeks ago, I played Dungeons and Dragons for the first time with a bunch of friends. I've never played any tabletop RPGs before, so I went in with zero expectations. I do love my fantasy though. It is all I read. The game began. Our crew arrived at a small village. We were tasked to slay a beast that probably killed a few too many villagers. After a while, the monster emerged. The cobblestones trembled as he stomped towards us. A peculiar creature that was a strange mix between a lion, an elephant, and a lot of other animals. We lunged towards the creature. The dice favored us. The beast slaughtered in barely a couple of moves. I didn't even have to fight. I just watched as the rest of the crew members overpowered the beast. In any case, I wasn't a fighter, but a musician skilled with the lute. As we celebrated our first kill, another crew member, the ogre, put up a crooked smile. "Here we go again," I said. The ogre thought it funny to fling the body of the slain beast towards one of my friends, the talking penguin. The dice unraveled its decision on our table, choosing the penguin's fate to be crushed by the body of the slain. Splattered dead on the cobblestones, his blue suit coat tattered. Everybody of the crew just left, leaving me to deal with the body of my feathery friend. I decided to bury him among the trees with an offering, fish. I think that made sense. Penguins love fish. As I sat, my back against a tree, I finished the ritual with a song played on my lute, my strings singing a melody that birdfolk would chant to send the fallen to heaven. He taught it to me back then when we would play the lute together. I played until only the moon illuminated the forest. As I moped back into the village to meet up with the rest of the crew, a figure spawned from the nightly mists. An incorporeal body that radiated a delicate blue, as if he was part of the mists. There he was, dressed in his favorite blue suit coat. Our eyes met, frozen in time. He waved out his wing to me, and as I took out my hand to do the same, he dissipated into the stars above. He always did want to fly. Yeah, everything I said really did happen in the game. Okay, I kind of wrote it out as if it were a book, but all the actions, all the story really did happen while we were playing. And despite everything being so goofy, I felt fully immersed in that world. Kind of like reading a book, but you're one of the main characters living the story. Since my memory isn't that much better than the fish I buried, I took out my sketchbook to take notes of the events. But as I held that ballpoint pen in my hand, I couldn't help to doodle all the wacky things that happened. My friends, they loved to see how I doodled one of the elves get dragged into the forest by ghostly hands. So as we kept on playing, I had my head buried in my sketchbook. So line after line, that fear that I once had started to fade away. I no longer cared if my drawings looked any good. It wasn't about that. It was about bringing our adventure to life, to make it more real, more tangible. As we finished our game, I realized that the sketchbook I held, until now, hasn't been drawn in for months. Now I have pages upon pages of not only new ideas, but memories of the fun we had that day. That's when I remembered why I loved to draw. It took me back to my childhood, where I was fearless, where I had no expectations and made art for the hell of it. Let me ask you a question. Why do you make art? Why did you decide to be an artist? Isn't it because we want to be free, to choose our own path, to do the things we love, to spend our life creating, just like when we were a kid, drawing our favorite TV characters? That energy, that spirit, that fearlessness can still be held even as an adult. We may all still feel fear sometimes, and it might never go completely away. But let's not let it decide what we can and not do. Let's make art for ourselves. Isn't that why we chose to be artists in the first place? I bid you farewell and good luck with your art. Thanks for listening, and hopefully I'll see you in the next video. Now, go draw or paint something.